Hi everyone, it's Andy from Hobby Headquarters. Today we're going to start building the Academy 1/35 scale Hetzer. I've been wanting to actually build a Hetzer to add to my line of German armor back there, so let's get started on it. As we get started on construction, point out just a couple little things. First of all, it's a bathtub style hull, so the walls are already mounted in place, so you get a nice square surface to start off with. You don't have to worry about lining up anything. One thing I got really excited about as I was reading through the instructions, I saw the camouflage pattern, and it's the circle pattern that they put in there, and it kind of worried me at first because that's sometimes hard to mask off. But as I was digging through the box of stuff, I noticed Academy gave me this giant masking sheet. Now I know it's going to be kind of hard to see, but this has all been die cut with that pattern already inside of it. So I'm really excited about that because I wanted to do that circle pattern, but just thought, oh, that's going to be a lot of work. But with this thing right here, we'll be able to just take these masks, put them on, do our paint job, and come up with showing you the box art again, that circle pattern where there was like just circles after circles. So really excited about that. As we begin the build of the lower suspension, one nice thing that Academy has done is they've given you witness marks everywhere, and those will help everything line up really nice and straight and true, like the little dot pattern right here that are going to attach to the other portion of the transmission. You put those on right there, everything squares up nicely, and then when you put it into place, it lines up really nicely as well. Now as we get to the suspension arms, I would advise not to glue them in immediately. And the reason you don't want to glue them in is this way you can flex them down and get the leaf spring mounted into place. So once the leaf spring is mounted into place, you put a little glue on there, mount it in there, and then you'll be able to bend the suspension arms up so they lock into the leaf spring. And this way you can keep a nice straight pattern of your road wheel so you don't have a run road wheel coming off the ground. Which would be kind of irritating. And once you get them all straight, you can glue them into place. The road wheels all fit into place really easily. One thing you want to probably do at this point is to avoid gluing on the drive sprocket and the return idler, and I will show you why in a little while. Okay, now that we've glued on the back fenders right here, you don't want to allow them to dry too long. And the reason that is because as we put the back on here, back of the hull, this and this have to line up. So if you let them dry too long, you might have a hard time if you got the angle wrong. So we'll go ahead and glue this into place and then flex that down just slightly, just so it meets up with the back here. You can see how I have it right there. My angle is slightly off, but like I said, I just glued it on, so we'll be able to move it down so it lines up perfectly. Okay, as you watched me build the individuals there, what we're doing is we're just gluing on the length piece of track now that we've done the individual ones there, and getting all that on there. And then what I like to do is to give it one good kind of wet coat right down the middle of it. And what that's going to do is get the little extra glue on there, gives us a little bit more working time too. So what you do is let that dry for about 5 minutes. And the whole reason that we left the drive sprocket off will become evident real soon when we put it in there and we just wrap the tracks right around there. So I'm going to let that dry up a little bit, and then I will show you how it wraps around the drive sprocket. Okay, so now that we've let this dry for a little bit, we're just going to take our drive sprocket, push it right in here and get it to about the point that, and we can just wrap that around. We can put a little glue up inside in here to make it stick, because we want to make the, oh, there's the other drive sprocket. This wants to fit right inside there. In the middle of this track has got to hit the middle of the return roller up on top. So as long as you get it like that, you're good to go. And then this one will just hook right into the bottom of this. So I will go ahead and glue this drive sprocket into place, make sure all the track lines up, and then glue the bottom portion of track on. And as you can see right here how it all fits together, now we're going to basically do the exact same thing, removing the return roller, or excuse me, the idler in the back, and just wrap the rest of the track right around and have them meet right here in the middle on the top. And the last little segment will pop right into here. You also may notice too that I haven't cleaned up the outer edges of all these little tracks. I found it much easier to clean them all up once they're all glued together. You can use a flat sanding stick to take off all that entire edge. Sanding them individually can be a lot of fun, especially holding on to those tiny little parts. So let's get this glued into place right here, and then we'll glue the top piece on. And here's our final assembly of the track. It only took about 20 minutes to do the side of it. I think it looks nice. It has a nice little sag on each side of that. Looks really well. So I'm going to go ahead and do the other side right now, and we'll come back to mating the top of the chassis to the hull. I'm going to show you guys something that I went ahead and did. I went and put a little piece of strip styrene across the back here to beef up the back of this. I noticed there was a few little seams that were a little bit bigger than I think they should have been. So I'm just in the process right now. I like to use the Vallejo putty because it's actually water-based stuff. So put a little bit in there, dip a Q-tip in water, and then you can rub it down and get just the smallest amount left in there. And it's not like some of the other putties that, you know, bond to the plastic super hard immediately, and then you're taking forever to try to sand it out. This, while it's wet, you can actually go right in there and clear it all out. I'm going to do a little bit more work on it, but we got rid of, there was just a little bit too much of a kind of a weird looking seam right here and here, that, and actually now that I notice it, probably maybe even a slight bit more right here. So I'll go over with the putty and fill all those in. Plus we also went ahead and put our photo etch grill on the back too. Okay, I've gone ahead and I've put the rest of the little parts on, like the machine gun. When it comes to the track racks here, what I actually did was only glue the bottom so we can paint it, lift this up, slide the piece of track inside of it, and then we'll be able to glue it right back down. And did the same thing on the back too here. We went and finished puttying all the little different areas I was talking about earlier. So first thing we're going to do right now is we're going to put a coat of flat black on it, or NATO black, and this is going to tell us if we have any flaws anywhere before we go forward with the paint job. It's also going to act as our shadow coat as well. Okay, I've gone ahead and put the NATO black coat on, and pretty happy with the fill and all the other parts on it. So we're going to go ahead and shoot the model with XF60, the dark yellow, and that'll be our base coat before doing the camouflage. Okay, I've repainted the actual vehicle back to dark yellow. I tried the decal masking on it, and because of all the little parts and stuff, it didn't come out as good as I thought it would. So the next thing we're going to try to do is I've made some little masks out of a hole punch and some thin cardboard, and we'll see if we can get this to work a little bit better. Okay, I've gone ahead and finished up doing that pattern all across the vehicle. Plus I painted the first and last main road wheel in green too to match some of the pictures that we've seen. So this will be the first coat of the green, and actually now we'll start doing the red-brown and kind of put more stripes and stuff onto it. Okay, I've gone ahead and finished off the brown and did all that pattern on it, and now we're just going over it and doing some of the ambush, and we're just going to use a fine brush. We want this to be a little bit more not so rough of an edge, so to speak, than what we did the last time with the ambush. And this was usually put on just with guys blotting it on with a brush. So once we clear coat that, that should blend all of this together nicely. So I'm just going to randomly be going over and putting the dots. Some big, some small. I don't want them all to be the same size. Okay, we've left the clear coat dry for a little while, and now we have our decals. And there's not a lot of markings on this vehicle, but we do want to have at least something on here because they did have it on there. So we'll let these dry, and then we'll go ahead and put a coat of microsol on that to seal them in, help them soften, stick to the surface really well. And then we'll give it one more clear coat, and then we can start doing the weathering on the vehicle. Okay, now that we've sealed in the decals, let the clear coat dry for a while, we're going to use our chipping mixture, which I usually make in a big bottle. This is a mixture of about 50% NATO brown, about 40% NATO black, and about 10% red, all mixed up. And we're just going to take our little bit of foam, dip a little bit into it, and then blot out most of the excess on it. And then just lightly start going over some of the high points. And any other places you want to have scratches show up. Hopefully you can start to see how it starts to look like chipping effect on it. So I'm going to go over the rest of the vehicle with that right now, and then we'll come back and do the next coat. Okay, now what I've done is I've taken that same mixture and added a little bit more NATO black to it to kind of darken it just a little bit, so we can go over a second time on some of this areas and bring out a little bit more of a more worn scratch. Hopefully we'll have like a multi-layer of the coloring. So I'm going to start doing some more of that throughout the rest of the vehicle. Okay, I finished up doing the chipping. kind of went a little bit more than I normally do on, but I wanted to give it a try. I think it actually looks pretty good this way. So the next thing we're going to work on is going to be the tracks. Get those all dirtied up, and as usual we'll be using our light sienna and desert dust as a fixture to start putting it on, weathering on the track. So I'll show you how to do that. Okay, starting off, we're going to just use a little bit of the desert dust wash and kind of saturate the track. Don't want to do too much so too much of it doesn't dry. And then just using the same brush, just dip it right into the light sienna and just start forcing it into all the little nooks and crannies in there. And don't forget, this is going to dry completely different than the way it looks when it goes on wet. So if you're not totally crazy with the way something looks, give it a little while first before you do anything about it, because it will dry, like I said, quite a bit differently. Okay, we're going to let that dry and we'll come back to it in a few minutes. And once that starts to dry, we're just going to take a regular number 2 pencil and just highlight the tops of each one of those cleats. And that'll give it a little bit of a metallic finish. It'll also scrape off any of the dust that we put on the top that normally would have much on it. So hopefully you can start to see, showing that a little bit more in the light effect on it. And I'll keep going over that until we get to the finish that we want on, but that gives you an idea what the next step will be. Here I'm using just a really dark gray, almost black wash. Okay, so here we are with the final reveal. I want to just point out a few little minor things that I did to it. First of all, I took a little bit of Vallejo's mud and grass mixture, put it on the very front of the bow, as well as on the back of the hull right here, just to give it a little bit of extra dirt and mud on it. Lightly misted a little bit of XF57 buff over the entire vehicle, just to kind of knock down the decals a little bit so they're not super bright. I showed you that we did a little bit of the wash inside all of the wheels. We also did a little bit of wash and oil stains on the very back deck, which hopefully you can see them when the light hits them just right. Yeah, there they go right there. They'll pop up. So I just want to tell you, this kit was super easy to build, very nicely detailed. You can easily build in a day and then get right to painting, which is something I certainly appreciate. The kit retails for about $40 in the United States, so, and it's also one of the few Hetzers actually on the market right now. So it's a definite recommend on my part, that if you're looking for a Hetzer, a nice late war vehicle, that you can build this one up, and like I said, easy to build and a lot of fun. So as usual, I appreciate you watching the videos, and please stay tuned because I have many more coming.